Welcome to English Podcast. Subscribe our channel for more update.
Okay, welcome to the deep dive. Today we're digging into a source that might seem a little unusual at first glance. It's a transcript from a podcast episode called English Chat: Life, Challenges, and Learning. It's from a place called English Chat Corner.
That's right. And this specific episode, well, it was actually designed for B1 level English learners. It features these two hosts, Emma and Jack, just having a pretty normal chat, talking about their week, everyday problems, that sort of thing, and naturally, tips for learning English.
Right. And our mission here for this deep dive is to look beyond just the language lesson aspect.
Right.
We want to unpack the insights hidden in this simple conversation. What can it tell us about tackling challenges generally, whether that's learning something new or just, navigating life? We're aiming to pull out those bits of advice you can actually use.
Yeah, it really shows how you don't always need dense academic texts. Sometimes the most relatable everyday conversations have some real gems in them.
So let's set the scene from this source you brought. It's basically these two hosts, Emma and Jack, catching up.
Exactly. Emma starts off talking about helping a friend move house. And you know what moving's like. She specifically mentions carrying boxes in the rain.
Oh, the worst. Definitely stressful.
Yeah. But she also says, despite the hassle, it felt good, rewarding, because her friend was really grateful.
That combination rings true, doesn't it? The difficulty, but also that feeling of appreciation.
Totally. And then Jackie talks about reading a book, something on personal growth and motivation. And he points out it wasn't just about learning new words for him. It actually helped him understand himself a bit better, too.
So they start with these really grounded, everyday things, challenges, small wins, little insights. It makes the whole conversation feel very accessible, which is a great way to then ease into talking about, bigger challenges.
Precisely. And they do move into discussing more common problems. And one they focus on is something I think probably everyone listening can relate to.
Let me guess. Time management. Or maybe just feeling overwhelmed.
You got it. Time management. Specifically that feeling of having a to-do list, but only managing to get through half of it, if you're lucky.
Oh, painfully familiar. You make the list, it looks huge, and suddenly you just don't want to start.
Yeah, you see the mountain, not the first step.
Yeah.
And the solution they discuss is, it sounds simple, but it's powerful.
Making smaller goals instead of looking at the whole list.
Exactly that. Focusing on just taking, say, one small step, or maybe two. Like deciding, okay, today I'm just going to finish this one important thing. Not trying to conquer everything all at once.
It's about breaking it down, making the big scary thing seem less scary. And that idea, taking small steps, that links perfectly into the main focus of their podcast usually, right? Learning English.
Yes. They state it pretty directly. Learning a language, it takes time, it takes patience, and crucially, practice. It's definitely a long game.
It really is. So using that small steps idea, they frame language learning as, it's a big challenge, but it's doable if you approach it consistently with the right attitude.
Which brings them neatly into giving some very practical tips. Tips for English learners, sure, but honestly, they apply to learning pretty much any skill.
Okay, what's the first big one?
The first one is maybe the most liberating. Don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Yes. The fear of sounding silly.
Exactly. They stress that mistakes aren't failures. They're just how you learn. You get better because you try things, even if you say something wrong. If you wait until you think you'll be perfect, you'll probably never even start.
That applies to everything. Writing code, learning an instrument, cooking. Gotta mess up sometimes. Okay, tip number 2.
Consistency. They really emphasize trying to use this skill every single day, even just a little bit. For English, maybe that's listening to a podcast, reading something short, finding a moment to speak, just making it a regular habit.
Little and often. Makes sense. And the third tip, this feels important for sticking with it.
Make it fun. Enjoy the process. Connect the learning to stuff you already like. Love movies, watch them in English, into music, listen to English songs, read books you're genuinely interested in.
That's key, isn't it? If learning feels like a total drag, you're just not going to keep it up. Emma actually shares a personal story here, doesn't she? At learning Spanish.
She does. Back in high school, she started speaking Spanish with classmates and listening to Spanish music. And she found it wasn't just about, the mechanics, pronunciation, listening skills, although it helped those. It made the language feel alive, part of her actual life, which is huge for motivation.
That integration is powerful. Okay, so after these general tips, they give a practical example, like a mini demonstration.
Yeah, they do a quick role play, just simulating a simple chat you might have in a cafe.
And it's deliberately basic, right? Very functional.
Totally.
Yeah.
Just greeting, asking, how are you? Ordering drinks, she get the cappuccino, he get the tea. Very normal stuff.
They chat a bit about their day.
One was busy, had a meeting, did some shopping.
And there's a mention of finding a jacket on sale.
Yes. Because who doesn't appreciate a good bargain? It just shows how those small, daily practice ideas can translate into real, usable language for very common situations. It makes it less abstract.
Okay, then they pivot to tackle a listener question, a really common one, I imagine.
A very common one. How can I improve my English speaking if I don't have anyone to talk to?
Yeah, that's a big hurdle for lots of learners. Or even practicing, say, a presentation if you work alone. What do they suggest?
They offer some really creative, practical solutions. One is basically talking to yourself.
Just narrating your day, like, okay, now I'm making coffee.
Exactly like that. Or describing what you're doing while cooking dinner, brushing your teeth.
Yeah.
It might feel a bit weird at first, but it gets you forming sentences and thinking in English without any pressure.
I like that. What else?
Recording yourself speaking, then listening back.
Ooh, brave, but useful, I bet.
Definitely. It helps you really hear your own pronunciation, your pauses, your fluency in a way you just can't while you're actually talking. Gives you perspective.
And the third technique?
Shadowing. Specifically, shadowing podcasts. So listening and repeating what the speaker says almost immediately after them.
Right, trying to mimic the intonation and rhythm.
Yeah, they say it's fantastic for improving that natural flow and sound of the language. So 3 really good, accessible ways to practice speaking, even if you're on your own.
That's genuinely helpful stuff. And they also do a quick vocabulary review at the end.
They do. Just pulling out a few key words they use naturally in the chat.
Yeah.
Words like grateful, feeling thankful, motivation, the reason you want to do something. To-do list, pretty self-explanatory, that list of tasks. Pronunciation, how we say words. And shadowing, that technique of repeating right after someone.
All useful words, and hearing them in context helps them stick, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And then they wrap up the whole episode with a really positive, encouraging message, basically reinforcing that learning English or any big skill, it's a journey.
And reminding listeners that every little step counts, even the tiny ones. They genuinely matter.
Yeah, don't give up if it feels slow sometimes. Just by engaging, just by listening or trying, you're already making progress. You're doing great.
Stay curious. Keep that motivation going however you can. And just speak. Speak as much as possible.
Even to yourself. It's a lovely note to end on. Patience, persistence, enjoy the ride.
So if we zoom out now from this specific source, this chat for English learners, what have we really extracted here? It feels like some core principles for tackling almost any challenge, really.
I think so. We definitely saw the power of those small, manageable steps. Breaking down something that feels overwhelming, whether it's a huge project or learning a complex skill.
And the absolute need for practice that's both consistent and enjoyable. Making it part of your routine, but in a way you actually look forward to, or at least don't actively dread.
And we also saw those creative ways to keep practicing even when the ideal situation isn't there. Like finding ways to practice speaking when you don't have a partner. Using tools like recording or shadowing.
So for you listening, think about these ideas from Emma and Jack's chat. Small steps, enjoyable daily practice, creative solo methods. How could you apply those principles? Maybe not to learning English, maybe to something totally different you're working on.
Yeah, what's one challenge you're facing right now, or a skill you want to build? Thinking about these ideas, what's just one single small step you could commit to taking today?